we start?
Yes.
Okay. So one of you read, but even the intuitive reason is not gnosis. And then we come back to it. So, so maybe Sunki herself can read.
Yes.
Yeah.
I will read.
Okay, go ahead.
But even the intuitive reason is for mind
Yes.
and way by flashes of illumination into into the mentality like lightning in dim and cloudy places. Its inspirations, revelations, intuitions, self-luminous discernings are the message from a higher knowledge plane that make their way opportunely into our lower level of consciousness. The very character of the intuitive mind sets a gulf of a great difference between its action and the action of the self-contained gnosis. In the first place, it acts separate and limited inclinations, and its truth is restricted to the often narrow reach or the one brief spot of knowledge lit up by that one light flash with which its intervention begins and terminates. We see the action of the instinct in animals, an automatic intuition that powerful. Sense mind, which is the highest and the surest instrument that animal has to rely on, it does not possess the human light of the reason, only a cruder and yet ill-formed intelligence. And we can now observe at once that the marvelous truth of this instinct, which seems so much shorter than the reason, is limited in the bird, beast, or insect to some particular and restricted utility. It is admitted to serve. When the vital mind of the animal tries to act beyond that restricted limit, it blunders in a much blinder way than the reason of man and has to learn with difficulty by a succession of sense experiences. The higher mental intuition of the human being is an inner visional, not a sense intuition, but, but it illumines the intelligence and not the sense mind. It is self-conscious and luminous, not a half self-conscious blind light. It is freely self-acting, not mechanically automatic, but still, even when it is not marred by the imitative pseudo-intuition, it is restricted in man, like the instinct in the animal, restricted to a particular purpose of a will or knowledge, as is the instinct to a particular life utility or purpose. And when the intelligence, as is its almost invariable habit, tries to make use of it, to apply it, to add to it, it builds around the intuitive nucleus in its own characteristic fashion a mess of a mixed truth and error. More often than not, by foisting an element of sense error and conceptual error into the very substance of the intuition, or by coating it up in mental additions and deviations, it not merely defects but deforms its truth and converts it into a falsehood. At the best, therefore, the intuition gives us only a limited, though an intense light. At the worst, though through our misuse of it or false imitation of it, it may lead into a perplexities and confusions, which the less ambitious intellectual reason avoids by remaining satisfied with its own safe and plodding method, safe for the inferior purpose of the reason, though never a satisfying guide to the inner truth of things.
It's a very interesting para, and we'll go into great detail because each word, he's telling so many interesting things. So we'll see that and give examples also. But now, uh, Sunki, today your internet was fluctuating. Sometimes the
Oh,
voice Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes voice is clear, sometimes the voice is a little garbled. So,
Okay.
yeah, I don't know why, but that's what happened. So
Yeah,
anyway,
sorry. Maybe the earphone problem, I think.
yeah,
Sorry.
now I can hear clearly.
Ah, okay, okay.
I don't know if the others also saw what I saw, that there was a fluctuation.
Yeah.
So anyway,
The ear.
Yes, there was a lot of disturbance.
yeah, okay. So
Yeah, I
now,
think it's the earphone connection. Sorry. I will check that
yeah,
later.
okay. But now it's clear. Achha, now I read now what he's saying. Very interesting. Okay, we'll see what he's saying. Intuition. So remember, the chapter is Vijnana or Gnosis. He is trying to describe to you what is Vijnana or Gnosis. That means the supramental world. But he has to tell you what are the planes of consciousness below the supermind, and that's what he's doing now one by one. And he is saying that it is easy to mistake the lower ones for the higher, because sometimes you can get a glimpse of the higher in the lower. Okay. Now today in the morning I was reading letters, and there are two things which I need to stress, because I also understood that very clearly for the first time. One is I'm okay, level 1 body mind life, very clear. Level 2 spiritual planes of consciousness. You are not identified with your body mind life, but your knowledge is not the absolute spiritual knowledge. It is much superior to the lower ignorance, but it is not the ultimate knowledge. It's a great knowledge. It is so satisfying that you think that that's the end, last. Okay. But above that is the supermind, which is the ultimate at present. Okay. Afterwards, the supermind also may not be the ultimate. But that at present, at the present stage of evolution, it is the highest and very difficult to reach. So now he is telling you one by one. So when you are in the higher mind or the element mind or the intuitive mind or the overmind, you will be able to receive the impressions, influences, intuitions, suggestions from the supermind into your lower levels. Okay. Now, one thing is there, your consciousness is open to the spiritual planes of consciousness, but you are still in the body mind life. At that time, when you are in the body mind life, but you have experienced the spiritual planes of consciousness, the influences, suggestions, and guidance from the come into the lower. Okay, at that time it is only half. Now, when you are in the spiritual planes of consciousness, okay, but your consciousness is not in the supramental, you can still receive suggestions from the supramental. But there is a big difference between receiving the intuitions of the higher planes into the lower planes when you are stationed there, and there is a big difference between when your consciousness is located there. It's like I am here in India, but I know what's happening in America. I receive news, but I am not in America. But when I am in America, the news that I was receiving becomes absolutely real and livid to me. Okay. So this difference you must understand, and there's a lot of things what he's saying. This principle will apply. When you are in the lower, you can still get influences and suggestions from the higher. This is what happens to animals in instinct. Okay. So keep this in mind. Where are you situated? Even when you are situated in the lower planes, guidance can come from above. Okay, that's largely what he's explaining in this para. But if your consciousness has risen fully to that higher plane, it's like your knowledge of that plane becomes complete. Okay, so keep this in mind, and we will read the para. Yeah, it is even thought. No, wait. Is that what we have to read today? No, but even the intuitive. Sorry. Yeah, I'm reading each sentence. But even the intuitive reason is not the gnosis. Okay. So intuition is the third higher plane in the spiritual planes of consciousness. The higher mind is the first one, the element mind is the second one, and the intuition is the third one. So even when you are in the higher mind, intuition will send you suggestions and you can receive them in a diminished manner. Okay, so intuitive reason is not the supermental. He's telling you very clearly. It is only an edge of light of the supermind finding its way by flashes of illumination into the mentality like lightnings in dim and cloudy places. See, so wonderful description. When there is a dim and cloudy places, and if there is a lightning, suddenly things become clear for a very short time. Okay, so this is intuition. But this is when you are in the lower planes, this is what happens. But if you are in the intuition proper, it won't be like lightning in a dim and cloudy place. It won't be dim and cloudy. It will be absolutely stabilized lightning. The amount of light that will be there will be stabilized. It will not be a flash. Very interesting, no? What he's saying. So you see the difference? I am in the higher mind plane. I am in the spiritual plane. But I am not in the intuition, but I am receiving suggestions, influences, okay, guidance from the intuition. So it will be like this. It will be like though you are in a dim and cloudy place, but a lightning comes and lights up the whole thing. Okay, it's like that. But if your consciousness is in the intuition, it won't be a dim and cloudy place at all. It will be like stabilized lightning. So much light will be there. So much of understanding. Okay, so the description is so clear and so beautiful. So now, it's inspirations, intuitions, revelations, intuitions, self-luminous discernings are messages from a higher knowledge plane that make their way opportunely into our lower level of consciousness. So now, look at this and understand exactly what is it. The intuition is sending inspirations. Now, inspirations, you use the word for actually hearing. So you may hear words, okay? You may hear guidance. It's a subtle noise. It's a subtle sound, not noise. It's a subtle sound. You can hear, okay? Like the Vedas were heard, okay? Shruti, they were heard. So when you're using inspiration, don't think of the inspiration as a normal, what we understand by the word inspiration. It is a hearing of the truth. Okay. Then revelations. Revelations are sight. Okay. You see the truth. The lightning lights up and that which you were not seeing earlier, a flash of light comes and you see things which you were not seeing earlier because you are in a dim and cloudy place. So each word, see how it means. Then intuition. Now what is intuition? Intuition is like a flash of light or a drop of light that comes into you without thought. That is intuition. Okay. Then there are self-luminous discernings. Okay. This is discernment. Discernment is viveka, the capacity to understand the difference between truth and falsehood, between less and more, between you can understand. So these are all the four powers of the supermind. Inspiration, actually first is revelation, the seeing, revelation, inspiration, intuition and discernment. Okay, the discernment mind. So these are the, same they use the word discrimination. So all these four powers are absolutely full in the supermind. But you are not in the supermind, you are in the lower planes of consciousness. And even from in the higher mind, these things can come to you. You can hear, you can see, you will be able to understand things by a flash of lightning and discerning. You will be able to distinguish between the, we can't do that. We can't distinguish truth and falsehood. We often think that what is false is really real. Nah? So, but in the supermind, all these things are there. And when you are in the lower planes of consciousness, these things are seen partially. Okay, they are messages. They are not the full experience. From the higher knowledge plane that make their way opportunely into our lower level of consciousness. Now look at the word opportune. Again, he is giving you. It depends on your condition. What your condition is. As soon as it sees that your condition is ready to receive, the inspiration, illumination will come into your mind. So it doesn't come always. So the word opportune means it has to wait for your consciousness to become clear, less muddy and less dim and less cloudy. Okay, so the word opportune is immediately telling you that it's not always coming to you. It comes to you when you are ready, when your consciousness is sometimes not muddy and not unclear. Okay, so interestingly, he uses words. One word and he's telling you a whole lot of things. Okay, so now we go to the next sentence. So this is a wonderfully clear thing what he's saying, but you have to understand each word. Inspiration will normally not understand what he's saying. Revelation also, but these are the Shruti, Drishti. Intuition, I'm not sure of the word in Sanskrit, but self-luminous discrimination is Viveka. Okay. The capacity to distinguish, discrimination. Okay. So I go to the next sentence. The very character of the intuitive mind sets a gulf of great difference between its action and the action of the self-contained gnosis. So when you are in the, even in the intuition, when you are there fully, the action that you will be doing, there is a great difference in the action between the supermind and the intuition. Certainly using the word great difference and gulf, okay, between its action and the action of the self-contained gnosis. In the first place, it acts by separate and limited illuminations, and its truth is restricted to the often narrow reach or the one brief spot of knowledge lit up by that one lightning flash with which its intervention begins and terminates. So you are in a higher level of consciousness, but in comparison to the supermind, it is less. It's a much lesser knowledge, and their intuition works by lightning flashes. So when lightning flash comes, you see things which you were not seeing earlier. Huh? So it's a brief spot of knowledge. So for instance, Newton got intuition that gravitation, it restricted itself only to gravitation. He understood that. Okay. Take Einstein. Okay. He understood the relativity of things. So that was all intuition, definitely. A flash of lightning comes in the mind and he understands one particular thing. Certainly saying very clearly, brief spot of knowledge. You don't get entire knowledge. Everything doesn't become clear. Only one area becomes clear. Okay. So that up by that lightning flash with which its intervention begins and terminates. In other words, suddenly there's an illumination, you understand something, and then the illumination stops, like lightning. Okay. This is also the example we can give of Ramanujam with all his mathematical formulas which he gave. They were all true, but he could not understand how he got them. But he got them, and there was no logical explanation for them. So this is exactly what Sri is saying. Brief spot of knowledge lit up by that one lightning flash, which with its intervention begins and terminates. For that brief moment of light, you understand. When that lightning stops, again you are back in your normal consciousness, but you have understood that truth. Only one aspect of it. Okay, so begins and terminates, because that's exactly what lightning flash is. It illuminates and disappears. We see the action of the instinct in animals. So this is what he's now explaining. The intuition that comes down into man, he will discuss man afterwards, but first he's discussing the animals. The animals do things without thinking. They migrate, they build nests, the cat starts looking for a secret place for the kitten to be born. Okay, the spider makes its web to catch insects so that it can eat. But it does all this without technical knowledge, without knowledge. It does this automatically. So intuition becomes instinct in animals. That's what he's explaining. So clear. No? They are doing it without thought. It's automatic action. That is the intuition. He's giving a beautiful example in animals. All the instinct, the migration of birds. Okay, there are so many interesting things that you see. Sometimes A kitten may give a cat may give birth to 5 or 6 kittens, but sometimes it knows automatically that one of them is weak and will not be able to survive. So it's unusual, but it does happen. It eats it up. It eats it up, it destroys it. I have seen elephants also, when they feel that the elephant is weak, they abandon it. And that's why these small elephants are caught and brought to zoos and fed by human beings and made strong again. Because the mother elephant does not have the capacity of reviving that through medicines, but man has. That's how you get so many elephants in the abandoned calves, okay, elephant calves. Or sometimes they get stuck in a river and then you see and you rescue them. The newspapers are full of all these small details, okay. So that's the instinct in animals. So where is the instinct coming from? It is coming from the intuitive plane of consciousness. Okay, but intuition is not supermind. That's what I explained. In the first place, it acts by separate and limited eliminations, and its truth is restricted to the often narrow reach. Reach, the word reach is an area, limited area of a ground, okay, or the one brief spot of knowledge lit up by that one lightning flash with which its intervention begins and terminates. We see the action of the instinct in animals, an automatic intuition in that vital or sense mind. Now, note that, okay? Vital or sense mind, okay? Which is the highest and surest instrument that the animal has to rely on, since it does not possess the human light of the reason, only a cruder and yet ill-formed intelligence. So, an example of the automatic intuition in the vital and sense mind, very often you will see carnivores who eat only meat suddenly start eating grass, okay, or things which are like that. So they know exactly what to do because there's some digestive problem and they start eating grass and things like that. They do that automatically. You don't expect it. Even dogs do that sometimes. Okay, so we see the action of the instinct in animals, automatic intuition, in the vital or sense mind. Note, the vital is more prana, less physical. Sense mind, more sense. Okay, the sense, which is the highest and surest instrument of the animal, has to rely on, since it does not possess the human light of the reason, only a cruder and yet ill-formed intelligence. Now look at the next sentence, very interesting. And we can observe at once that the marvelous truth of this instinct, which seems so much surer than the reason, is limited in the bird, beast or insect to some particular or restricted utility it is admitted to serve. So in the animals, these intuition coming and the instinct does not work everywhere in all the fields. Okay, birds, for instance, know only migration. Okay, then the cat knows when to look for a secret place. They don't have other knowledge. Then the birds also know how to build nests before the eggs come. Okay, so these are very interesting. When this is the restriction to a certain level. Now he says very interesting. When the vital mind of the animal tries to act beyond that restricted limit, Srimad has told us earlier, it can be vital, it can be sense mind. Okay, so if it is sense mind, it is very good. But if it comes to the vital, then there is a problem. And I'll tell you what the problem is. I have seen that. Okay, when the vital mind of the animal, okay, not human being, a vital mind of the animal tries to act beyond that restricted limit, which is a sense mind, it blunders in a much blinder way than the reason of man and has to learn with difficulty by a succession of sense experiences. Sense experience, note he has told you earlier, sense, mind and vital. Now, I have seen, okay, I am telling you, it's very interesting. Normally, a bird builds its nest magnificently. Na? You see engineering feat sometimes. They have 2 chambers sometimes. They take all sorts of small things and build a nest. with one entrance and the other entrance. There are even two chambers sometimes, these weaver birds, what you call. They're absolutely fantastic. And small sunbirds, they actually stitch leaves together to make a small nest. Okay. But when it uses the sense mind, it can go wrong. And I'll give you a very interesting example which I've seen. In the art house, okay, where there is the art department and there is the massage clinic, there's a big mango tree. And in that mango tree, one day I used to see that when I'm going inside and putting my cycle, the ground is full of small, long twigs, long twigs. And I used to wonder from where it is coming and who is putting all this here. Then when I look up, I see that there are crows trying to build a nest. Okay, but they're not succeeding. Why? Because they have used, the twigs are too long. When you want to make a crow's nest, you have to use small pieces. Otherwise, they can't get that circular thing. It's very interesting. So the animal is not learned. It is doing something wrong. Okay, so this is what, when it tries to use the vital mind, the animal learns by mistake that it can't build that nest. So it has to learn by sense experience that it has to use smaller twigs. It learns. Okay, and I also saw once in my own room, two sparrows trying to build a nest in the on my ceiling. There was a light. Okay, there was a small platform-like thing above the light, and the two sparrows were trying to build a nest there. But again, the same thing, they were making mistakes, and all the time, all those little twigs that they are bringing is falling down. Okay, and if you have seen also squirrels' nests, it's fantastic what they do. They take the softest of things everywhere. If you have pillows in your house and they are building a nest, the squirrels are building a nest for their offspring, they'll actually eat into your pillow and take out that the soft cotton. It's fantastic. So this is, they can make mistakes. Animals do make mistakes sometimes. Okay, so for instance, a horse, it knows automatically when there's a gulf and a channel to be crossed. It knows that it can do it and it goes. But sometimes it makes a mistake and it falls into the channel. Okay, so things like that. Animal can make a mistake if it does not use the sense mind but goes to the vital mind. It will make a mistake. That's what they're saying. Same thing with human beings also. Okay, it blunders in a much blinder way than the reason of man, and has to learn with difficulty by a succession of sense experiences. Now, the higher mental intuition of the human being, he has dealt with the animal. Even at the animal level, the intuition is working as instinct. What about human beings? The higher mental intuition of the human being is an inner visional, not a sense intuition. In the animal, it is sense intuition. But in human beings, it is inner visional. Okay, you suddenly have a vision, and when you have visions like that, revealing truths to you, in man, it's coming from the intuition plane. Okay, it's not a sense intuition. For the animal, it is pure sense intuition. Or it illumines the intelligence and not the sense mind. It's a mind that gets it. Like I said, Newton and Ramanujan and Einstein. It was inner visional, okay, not sense. It illumines the intelligence and not the sense mind. It is self-conscious and luminous, not a half subconscious blind light as in the animals. Okay? It is freely self-acting, not mechanically automatic. Freely self in a human beings. In the animal, it is mechanically automatic. Okay? Look at the words very carefully. Yeah? In human beings, it is freely self-acting, but in animals, mechanically automatic. In a human beings, it is not mechanically automatic. We don't act by instinct. We act by the mind. Okay. But still, even when it is not marred by the imitative pseudo-intuition, sometimes it can be a pseudo-intuition. Intuition comes, but the human mind distorts it. That's what it means by imitative pseudo Pseudo intuition, half intuition. Okay, the word pseudo means half, false. Okay, not fully the right thing. It is restricted in man, like the instinct in the animal, restricted to a particular purpose of will or knowledge, as in the instinct to a particular life utility or nature purpose. So, just as intuition works in the animal only in restricted areas, okay, exactly in the same way, in human beings also, it acts only in restricted areas, not fully. When you go to the intuition proper, the illumination is full. You see the whole range. Everything becomes clear all around you. But when you are in your normal mind and intuition comes, one particular place gets illuminated. Like Newton, it is only gravitation. Like Einstein, it is only relativity. Like Ramanujan, only mathematics, not philosophy or anything. Okay, so it's Srimli is so precise. We have to understand exactly what he's saying. Okay, so and when so a particular purpose of will or knowledge, not a will everywhere or knowledge everywhere. For instance, Ramanujan certainly did not know the scientific truths. His knowledge is restricted only to mathematics. Okay, so as the instinct of particular life utility or nature purpose. This is animal. Okay, and when the intelligence in man, as is its almost invariable habit, tries to make use of it, to apply it, to add to it, it builds around the intuitive nucleus in its own characteristic fashion a mass of mixed truth and error. So what he's saying is, if you use your, that's a, you've heard of automatic writing, now. So automatic writing, you have to make your mind absolutely calm and quiet, and then the thing that comes from the higher planes gets transported into your pen and you write it down. There's no action of mind at all. Okay, but if mind intervenes, the mind substance is slightly more muddy than the intuitive substance. So when the intuitive substance comes, it's like pure water, but now with your mind, you are mixing dirty water with it. Okay, that's what he's saying. Okay. And when the intelligence, as is its almost invariable habit, tries to make use of it, okay, to apply it, to add to it, it builds around the intuitive nucleus in its own characteristic fashion a mass of mixed truth and error. Okay. But if you make your mind quiet, the intuition will come through without thought, it will be very good. But if you try to understand it and try to make it, use it, I think you are introducing the muddy substance of mind, which is at a lower level. When the intelligence, okay, now I go to the next. More often than not, by foisting an element of sense error and conceptual error into the very substance of the intuition, or by quoting it up in mental additions and deviations, it not merely deflects but deforms its truth and converts it to a falsehood. Now, very interesting again. Let's look at each word. What is saying? More often than not, by foisting, by forcing a wrong element into the intuition. Okay. To foist is to force your own opinion on others. It is to do that by foresight. You have to accept this by foisting. Okay. An error, an element of sense error or conceptual error. Error can be of two types. Okay, it can be a sense error or a conceptual. It can be a sense error. Okay, like color blindness is sense error. Okay, and conceptual error, your thinking is wrong. Very clear. Sense error can be there, and conceptual error also can be there. Sense error also is your hearing also, someone speaks something and you hear something else. Okay, so that's it. And conceptual error, an error in thought, into the very substance of the intuition. The very substance, note the word substance. Huh? Intuition is a substance. Mental also is a substance. The intuitive substance is clear, and the mental substance is more muddy, okay, more cloudy, more dim. Or by quoting it up in mental additions and deviations, it not merely deflects but deforms its truth and converts it into a falsehood. So when the intuition is coming in, if you keep your mind absolutely calm and quiet, you will get the truth. But only one truth in one area. Okay, that's exactly what he's saying. But if you let your mind intervene and try to understand, that's why he says when you're getting a spiritual experience, don't try to understand it. Just remain calm and quiet and let it go. You can think about it afterwards, but don't start thinking about it when it is coming. Keep your mind calm and quiet. Otherwise, you'll make mistakes. Okay, that's what he said. Coming into mental addition and deviation, it not only deflects. Now, there is a deflection, there is a deformation, and it's a falsehood. Again, there is a gradation there. You are only deflecting slightly, you are going off track, or you are deforming, even worse. And falsehood, the worst possible thing. So here also Sri has given you a gradation of what can happen. This is his way of writing prose. He, in one sentence, he gives you all the possibilities. So it is so, his style is global. Okay. In one sentence, he is giving you what we would have written in 3 sentences. Okay. So it can be a deflection, slight deflection, deformation, even more of untruth. And finally, it can become a falsehood also. Okay. At the best, therefore, the intuition gives us only a limited, though an intense light. It may be intense, but it is limited because it just lights up one particular area. Mind you, you are in the lower plane of consciousness and you are receiving the intuition. But if you are in the intuitive plane of consciousness, the light is not flashing, it is permanent. It is static light, like a lightning which is stabilized. Okay. So this is what he is describing when you are in the lower planes. At the worst, through our misuse of it or false intuitions of it, it may lead us into perplexities and confusions which the less ambitious intellectual reason avoids by remaining satisfied with its own safe and plodding method. Safe for the inferior purposes of the reason, though never a satisfying guide to the inner truth of things. Now, this is very interesting because let's take science, okay? What he's saying now applies very much to science. At the worst, okay, when you are distorting the intuition coming in, through our misuse of it or false imitations of it, it may lead us into perplexities and confusions. We can get very much confused, which the less ambitious intellectual reason avoids by remaining satisfied with its own safe and plodding method. This is exactly what science does. Science says, I will stick to reason. Okay? You are saying that there are higher levels of consciousness, but since I have not got that, I am satisfied by remaining in the field of reason itself. I will go slowly. It is very safe and it's a very slow process. I agree that it is plodding method. Science is plodding method, but I prefer to say that I don't want confusion. Okay, this is exactly what science is doing. Safe for the inferior purpose of the reason, though never a satisfying guide to the inner truth of things. If you go only by reason, you are safe because you don't accept things which you don't understand. But it never gives you the full truth, but you are relatively safe. That's what Shakespeare is. Beautiful paragraph and so clear. No? I enjoyed it very much. Okay, there we have got 2 minutes. So shall we read one more para? We can just read it. I hope all of you also enjoyed the para. It is so wonderfully written. Beautiful.
Yes, we did. Shall I read?
Yes, please go ahead, Yasmin. It is possible to cultivate.
It is possible to cultivate and extend the use of the intuitive mind in proportion as we rely less predominantly upon the reasoning intelligence. We may train our mentality not to seize, as it does now, upon every separate flash of intuitive illumination for its own inferior purpose, not to precipitate our thought at once into a crystallizing intellectual action around it. We can train it to think in a stream of successive and connected intuitions, to pour light upon light in a brilliant and triumphant series. We shall succeed in this difficult change in proportion as we purify the interfering intelligence. If we can reduce in it the element of material thought enslaved to the external appearance of things, the element of vital thought enslaved to the wishes, desires, impulses of the lower nature, the element of intellectual thought enslaved to our preferred, already settled, or congenial ideas, conceptions, opinions, fixed operations of intelligence. If, having reduced to a minimum those elements, we can replace them by an intuitive vision and sense of things, an intuitive insight into appearance, an intuitive will, and intuitive ideation. This is hard enough for our consciousness, naturally bound by the triple tie of mentality, vitality, corporality, to its own imperfections and ignorance. The upper, middle, and lower chord in the Vedic parable of the soul's bondage, gods of the mixed truth and falsehood of appearance, by which Shunashipa was bound to the post of sacrifice.
Yeah. So it is 8:35. So this one we'll do next time. Also very interesting. And what is Sunakshepa? Sunakshepa. This we will see. Okay. And I'll give you the parable of Sunakshepa and what is meant by the triple chord, the body mind life, triple chords. Ramakrishna's description of the triple chords. So it is possible to cultivate. Let's okay, note down page number and we read.
Yes.
Yeah, page number 480 and
Mhm.
read. It is possible to cultivate.
Yes.
Merci beaucoup. All
Okay.
the best for your visit to JIPMA today.
Yes, I hope so too. I hope that the doctor tells us that ignore the whole thing. Don't worry too much about it. Okay.
Merci.
Thank you,
Au
Dada.
revoir, everybody.